We'll get it started now.
Not good.
Okay. And, Bill Fielding.
All right. You got any more questions there, Rod?
No, sir. So I had.
Okay, perfect. I got a question here in the chat from Althea, so I'm gonna take it and we'll talk a little bit more on that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in at any point. Hey, Landis, good to see you this morning, buddy. All right. Althea, it looks like you have a question about the lawyer's office bid. You don't understand how I got to the production rate. Okay, perfect. Which is pretty interesting you bring up the lawyer's office mock bid anyways, because I wanted to revisit that today as well. So anybody who knows me knows that I'm a big proponent of being able to build out a production rate so I know how much time I'm going to spend. So Althea, the first step of coming up with that equation is knowing what type of facility it is. So let me pull up my mock bid here so we can look at that one. Give me just a second to get it pulled up. All right, so in our mock bid, if you looked at the document too that broke it down, I'm going to share it here in your chat so you can view it as well. I did a breakdown of this is a lawyer's office, and the frequency, I put it into what I call a medium clean. So a medium rate clean would be for carpeted areas, you're going to be at 2,200 to 2,800 square feet per hour. So that's the base of your production rate. That's where you're going to start, and then you're going to move that dial depending on expectations, depending on how clustered the facility is. You're going to move that needle up and down. So say if it's wide open area, well, I'd probably put it into an easier clean, and that square footage production rate is going to raise in excess of 3,000 square feet per hour. But if it's highly clustered up, let's say it's a bunch of cubicles and it's tile, then that production rate's going to drop because it's going to slow you down. You've got more surfaces to wipe. You've got more detail for sweeping, for mopping. So there's not a fixed number for what the production rate is. You have to base it off of certain variables within the facility. So with this lawyer's office mock bid, what we did was we looked at the facility. It was a commercial facility. It was 3,467 square feet. And then we looked at its frequency. So frequency and then the scope of work, it was a lawyer's office, so it's pretty standard scope of work. They're not extremely dirty, so it's not like cleaning, say, a doctor's office with the same square footage would take longer to clean because there's more to do. Or you say a manufacturing with the same square footage would take longer because it's going to be dirtier. So we take your square footage and then we say, okay, this isn't an easy clean, but it's also not a hard clean. So we're going to put it right in the middle at a medium clean. So our medium clean for carpet cleaning production rate, you're going to be somewhere between 2,200 and 2,800 square feet per hour. So you'll start with that, and then we'll move that needle as to where it needs to go in that. Is it more on the higher end, it's easier to clean? Is it more on the lower end, it's harder to clean? So once in this particular scenario, I put it at 2,300 square feet for a production rate for the carpet. The reason I did that, is because the offices have a little more detail to it with the dusting. So it was on the harder scale of the production rate than the opposite being on the easier scale. Then the next, our production rate for a medium clean for tile is going to be 1,800 to 2,100, 2,200, somewhere in there for a production rate of square footage per hour for tile. The reason why it's less is because you have to sweep and mop. So those two steps slow down your production rate. So we slowed down that production rate. We had that window of 1,800 to 2,100 to do. In the mock bid, I went with 1,900 square feet per hour. And the reason I went with 1,900 square feet per hour is in this scenario, the hard surface flooring was mostly bathrooms and break rooms. So it was a little more detailed work. So I put it on the harder end of the scale. Now, if it was wide open, say hallways, things that are easier to get to, easier to mop, don't get as much buildup, then I could have pushed it onto the other end of that spectrum and went to a higher production rate for the tile square footage. Don't understand how you got the production rate. So the production rates in general are going to fluctuate depending on where you are. So you take your medium clean, you're going to be like 22 to 2,800, maybe a little higher than that for carpet. You may be as high as 3,000 square feet for carpeting. You take something like vinyl tile, hard to surface where you have to sweep and mop, your production rate's going to be lower. You're going to be somewhere around that 2,000 mark. But then, so that's one scale. So you say that's our medium scale for production rate. Now we have to say, all right, what is a production rate for an easy scale? So if you're in a building, let's say what would an easy clean be is, let's say you go into a facility and it's just minimal offices, it's big open areas, it's all carpeting. Well, that can be done faster. So we put that into an easy scale of, say, in excess of 3,000 square feet per hour. So depending on where you're at, you would have to decide what that looks like. Right? Let's say you're doing school and you're not wiping desks, you're just floors, floors and bathrooms, right? Basically. So you could say, okay, my production rate could probably be in excess of 4,000 square feet per hour in that specific scenario, because you don't have to slow down for wiping or pulling trash or things also that slow you down. Did that somewhat answer your question there, Althea? All right, perfect. Now, while we're still talking about this mock bid from a few months ago that we set it up, I want to take this same scenario, this same lawyer's office, but I want to put a little twist on it. So in our original scenario with this lawyer's office, we had 3,467 square feet, and the majority of that was carpet. What if we had this same building and say it's in an old part of town, like most cities, they have older houses that they convert to a commercial use? What if this, instead of this lawyer's office being in a commercial setting where there's actually commercial buildings with the rubber baseboards or the vinyl baseboards, it was actually in an old house? So even if we had the same square footage, our pricing is going to change based on other variables that we just added into this equation, right? So let's say this same 3,467 square feet. Now we've got all hard surface floors. They're all hardwood tile. Now in offices, they're going to have laid with carpet in the offices like throw rug carpets that are laid under the desk and stuff. But we still have hard surface around the edges. We have carpeting in the middle. We have older house, so we have older wood baseboards, which are going to take longer to clean and dust. They're going to show more. So depending on how picky this customer is, I may have to take more time per month actually physically wiping these as opposed to just dusting them. And then in most cases, because it's an old house, it's going to have 2 floors. So there's going to be at least 1 stairwell, if not 2 stairwells within the facility. So all these things we have to factor back into it and say, now this bid that we did for a commercial setting that was $650 is going to go up based on these other variables. So in this scenario, we lose a couple hundred feet of carpeting to hard surface. So instead of being over 2,300 square feet in carpeting, it's going to be under 2,000 now. We got 1,922 square feet of carpeting. Our tile is increased, right? Before it was just the bathrooms and break room. Now we've got the hallways are hard surface. We've got hard surface around the edges in the offices. We still got the bathrooms. We've got the stairwell. All that's going to be hard surface. So it's increased from 1,095 to 1,545. So even if we say we've got the same amount of toilets, we've got the same amount of microwaves, the same amount of sinks, and all those times are fixed, we have to add the stairwell cleaning in there now. So what's the stairwell cleaning look like? In most cases, you're going to have to make sure the rail's wiped. You're going to have to make sure there's not dust in between the spindles and it's all swept or vacuumed all the way down the steps. So you're looking at an extra close to 15 minutes or so every visit just for taking care of that. Plus we have to reduce our production rate because we can't use the same production rate in this case. So the production rate that we used before in the medium clean, we used a 2,300 square feet per carpet. Well, now we have to factor in that these carpeted areas are also older. It's an older home. So we've got our dusting is going to be more meticulous because we've got wood crown molding. We've got wood baseboards. All of these things are going to take longer. It's not just going to be a quick with a microfiber duster. We're going to have to get something that's not going to snag on the wood. So that's going to slow our time down. So we're going to have to adjust that production rate down from 2,300, and we're going to have to move that probably down by maybe 200 square feet per hour lower. So we're going to be somewhere around 2,100 square feet per hour. Now this is right on the teeter of saying this isn't quite a medium clean. It's still within the guides. So we tweaked it enough to say, okay, it's going to slow us down. We're going to make sure that we have enough enough time to do this properly. We're also going to reduce our time for our tile because it's the same thing. Now we have the wood baseboards. We have wood crown molding all throughout all these areas that have tile, or not tile, but all the hard surface that's hardwood all throughout this old house. So we also need to reduce that time down to make sure we're leaving enough time in order to do all of our detailed monthly items that we can build into it. So we'll reduce that by the 100 or 200 square feet per hour, the same like we did with the other areas. So if we do that, I'm going to share my screen with you guys. If we've changed those things, then this is what we're going to be looking at is a difference. We still have the same hourly rate that we're going to use, which is $39.50 in this scenario. Obviously, that's going to change wherever you live. We've still got our same, however you guys figure out what you're up to, whether it's weekly times 4.33 or weekly times the amount of cleans or weekly times the year divided back by 12. It's all going to come out the same. by changing our numbers here with our carpet, by reducing our square footage production rate of both the carpet and the tile, you're going to see that this number here changes from 648 to 790. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of making sure you look at your production rate. You don't have a flat production rate of what everything is always. You have it on a sliding scale of this is a fast or an easy clean. This is what a medium clean range looks like. This is what a hard clean looks like. So that way you can dial in as you're walking through. This is a difficult clean. I've got to slow my times down to justify I have enough time to do that. So I'm also going to share this new sheet with you guys too. As soon as I open it up here. And that way you can view it. You can get an idea what it looks like, and play with your numbers, obviously too, to make sure that you're not going to end up screwing yourself and not getting enough on as far as bidding on a job, so you don't come out losing. Does anybody have any questions about the little bit that we reviewed? Explain the fixtures. So a fixture count, Althea, is pretty simple. Well, kind of simple. So ideally, what you want to do is say, you need to know what your fixture count is, because these things take time, right? A toilet takes longer to clean than a sink. And then if you're out of spec, right? So I could tweak our production rate to a little bit faster as long as I'm accounting for enough time for the fixtures. So our fixture count, I'm going to share my screen again so you can see it. It's on both the documents too. I outline our fixture count. So in most cases, your fixture count is going to look like this. A microwave is going to take you 2 to 4 minutes to clean. A sink is going to take you 2 to 3 minutes to clean. A toilet's going to take you 3 to 5 minutes. So the fixtures in this case, this is saying how long does it take you to clean a toilet from the top to the bottom, right? So we're going to clean the top of the tank. We're going to wipe the sides. We're going to wipe the handle. We're going to wipe the toilet seat behind the seat, flip it up, wipe the under part of the seat, the rim of the toilet, wipe down around the outer edges and all the way down on the bases and around the floor, so there's no urine or anything. And then obviously scrub out the inside too. So that is going to take you 3 to 5 minutes. So instead of just putting that into a bulk production rate, hey, this is my production rate, I'm not going to count the fixtures, you'll end up adding a few minutes of time for each thing. And that way you have a more accurate time that it's going to take you, and also you can more accurately spend the time that you need within the facility too. So in most cases, you're going to be within this range: 2 to 4 minutes for microwaves, 2 to 3 minutes for sinks, 3 to 5 minutes for toilets. In this scenario here, this is what we use. Sorry, I'm making all kinds of a mess here. This is what we used: was 2 minutes for the microwave, 2 minutes for the sinks, 3 minutes for the toilets. I went on the lower end for these toilets for 2 reasons. One of which, I'm doing it twice a week. They're not getting a ton of traffic in here. I mean, it's a lawyer's office, so they're not dirty. It's not like it would be a mechanic shop, and every week I'm scrubbing off oil and grease off of this toilet either. It's in a clean environment. It's not used that much, just employees for the most part. So I can reduce that time down to 3 minutes between the frequency of me coming and the use that it's getting. Did I cover what you were looking for there, Althea, on the fixtures? You guys have any questions about what we've gone over so far? Problem. Could you explain the whole problem? All right, Althea, it looks like you're trying to see how I got to the whole price from start to finish. So let me show you this. There should also be a video showing this mock bid as well in school. But I'll run you through where we're at right now. So this is the mock bid that you're talking about. This isn't the one we just reviewed. This is the actual original one. 3,464 square feet, lawyer's office. 2,372 square feet is carpet. So we've got our carpet, we've got our tiles, 1,095. We've got 2 restrooms that have 2 sinks, 2 toilets, and 1 break room that has 1 sink, 1 microwave. So in this scenario, I want to do $39.50 per hour. Now that's going to depend on where you are, where you're at, how you're going to figure that hourly rate. You may be higher, you may be lower, you may be spot on it. That's going to depend both on the area you're in and what kind of service you're offering, what your customers are expecting. So these are the figures that we're starting with. Now we're going to take those figures and we're going to put it into a medium clean because it's being done twice a week. It's a lawyer's office, so it's not completely a simple clean, but it's for sure not on the harder scale. So for our medium clean, we're looking at 2,200 to 2,800 for carpet or 1,800 to 2,100 for tile. That's your production rate. That's how much you can clean on an average clean. So that's pulling your trash, pulling your recycling if there's that, doing your dusting details, wiping of desk, vacuuming, any vacuum detail that you need to do. And then that builds you enough cushion over the course of the month for your monthly extras if you're vacuuming their furniture off or any other monthly things that you're doing that aren't built directly into that equation. That'll give you, you'll find you're faster in the days you're not doing your other detail stuff, but the days that you're doing your detail stuff, it's going to slow you down, and then it'll work itself out over the course of the month. So we've got our production rate here that we're gonna take, and we're gonna dial it in one way or the other based off of these variables here. We know it's a medium clean. We know our square footage. We know how much is carpet. We know how much is tile. And then we know what our fixture counts are here. So now we're going to take those fixture counts and we're going to say, all right, we're going to be on the lower side of everything. 2 minutes for microwave, 2 minutes for a sink, 3 minutes for the toilet, because this is not a difficult clean. So here's what we got for our breakdown. Right, our breakdown, we've got a production rate of 2,300 square feet per hour is what we're using for carpet, and 1,900 square feet per hour is what we're using for vinyl tile, and then 2 minutes for our fixtures and 3 minutes for the toilet. All right. So in this equation, there's nothing difficult. So I could even speed up the time. If I needed to be more competitive, I could raise that 2,300 square feet to 2,500. I could raise that 19 to 21. If I knew I needed to be super, super competitive, I could dial that in. So that can be changed. And I know that because I've talked to the company. We've addressed what they need. We've addressed what their concerns are. I know where their ballpark is for their bidding. So I know as long as I'm within that, if I can show enough other value for my work, if I'm within their ballpark, I can be on the higher side as long as I show more value of what I bring than somebody else. Now, if I'm concerned that I can't demonstrate that, then I can tweak these numbers. And there's enough room in this particular bid that I can tweak it. If I move the needle up or down by 200 square feet, it's not going to make or break this pricing. It's going to fluctuate it by maybe $100 over the course of the month. All right. So now the vinyl tile is bathroom or break room. It's restrooms. So this has to go on the lower scale. And the reason it needs to go on the lower scale is our production rate for those areas. Break room's going to have more of a mess on the floor, possible spills, possible things that are going to take more time to mop up. Restrooms are going to require a lot of detail around the commodes, around the edges of the flooring. So that production rate needs to stay on the lower end of our scale. We're at a 2-time-a-week clean. So this is what our breakdown of it's going to look like. 2,372 square feet of carpeting. We're going to divide that by 2,300 square feet. 2,300 is what we made our production rate at in this scenario. So if it was 2,500, it would be 2,372 divided by 2,500. If it was 1,900, it would be 2,372 divided by 1,900. And this is how you do your equation on your calculator: is the square footage of the building divided by your production rate. When you get to that point, this is the hours that it's going to take you to clean the carpeted areas. 1.03 hours is how long it's going to take. Now, you don't have to get this particular. You want to round down to 1 hour or, the closest 15 minutes. That's great. I keep it by the minute throughout my equation, and then I'll look at my total price and see if I can tweak it one way or the other. But you most certainly could round this down to an hour. That would be totally fine. The square footage for the vinyl tile is going to be figured out the same way, right? So our vinyl tile is 1,095 square feet. So the square footage of the tile divided by our production rate. In this case, we're going on our lower scale of our production rate for that because of the type of flooring that we're dealing with. So 1,095, that's the square footage of the facility, divided by 1,900 square feet. That's how much we say we can clean in an hour in that particular setting. Brings us to 0.58. So once again, you could round this to the nearest 15 minutes. So you could round it down to half hour, or you could round it up to 45 minutes. Either way, if you're trying to do a up or down scale, you most certainly could round it. All right, now here's where it gets a little more difficult, is once we start figuring out our fixtures. So our fixtures, how do we figure? We got one microwave. How do we get there? It's simple. One microwave times 2 minutes. So 1 times 2 is 2. And we divide that by 60. And we come up with 0.033. And then the same thing for the sinks or any other fixture count. You're going to go fixtures. So in this case, 2 sinks times how long it takes us to clean, 2 minutes. That's going to bring us to 4. Then we're going to take 4 and we're going to divide that by 60. That's going to bring us to 0.066. And then the same for the toilets. And I have them misnumbered in here. Toilets. We've got 2 toilets in this equation. I got that misnumbered somehow. And they're 3 minutes apiece. That's going to bring us, so 2 times 3 is 6 divided by 60. And that brings us to our 0.15 in this scenario here. So after we've got these, we add these up. 0.033, 0.066, 0.15 plus 1.03 for the carpet and 0.58 for the tile. That brings us to this total here, 1.89 hours per day. So now we have our daily hours figured out. Once we have these daily hours figured out, and it's as simple as multiplying times our hourly rate, and then however we want to figure our monthly rate. So in this scenario, 2 times a week, you can go 2 times a week times 4.33, which is going to equal 9, or you can go 2 times a week times 52 weeks divided by 12, which is going to also equal 9 when you round it. So we take 9 times 3950 times 1.89, and we come out just shy of 648. It's like 647 and change, and we just rounded it up. And that's how we get to our dollar amount for the pricing of the pricing of this particular bid. So I hope that made sense to you, Althea. Good deal. Good deal. And of course, anytime you've got questions on bidding, you can always, jump on these calls and ask. So if you're working on a bid, bring it on the call, and we'll talk about what it looks like as well. And that helps everybody else out too. Landis, you had a bid you did last week. Is that right? For a spa?
Yeah. Yep. I was trying to say what's up to you earlier, man, but I couldn't unmute myself quick enough driving.
I hear you. So when you dropped off that bid, everything went all right when you did your proposal?
Yeah, everything went well, man. Just trying to stay in contact with them this week to see, because usually a lot of the times we take the proposal over to the contact that we're dealing with. They might be overseeing the current cleaning or the designs of it or whatever, right? But then they have to take it up to the higher ups, and now we're playing the waiting game to make sure to see if they're gonna approve the quote and give us the contract and give us the bid. So I think that we're the only ones right now.
Nice.
And I feel as though we're building a good relationship. She actually wants us to look at the kitchen. So when I went there, I looked at the back kitchen of the restaurant in the spa. And to say the least, it's pretty bad, man. So it's pretty bad. So she's like, help us out, just let us know the price that it will be to do a deep clean on the kitchen. And I'm telling her, I'm like, I gotta really sit down and take a look at this, because it's probably one of the worst kitchens I've seen so far. Seriously. So yeah, it's just unorganized, and she wants the chef to organize it better. So we're working on a plan for that. Trying to get her that probably by tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. But yeah, the first part of it went really well though, man. And like I said, very I'm very grateful for all the help that you put in, all the time that you put in to help me with it.
No, for sure, man. For sure. I hope you guys get that. Looks like it'll be a pretty lucrative contract.
Yeah, we're praying, man. We definitely want to need it. So
Sure. So when you talk with customers, and this can be for anybody on the call, when you guys are going through and you do a bid and you're talking to somebody and you find out there's an additional decision maker or the person you're talking to is not the decision maker, do you guys try and weave them into kind of, for lack of a better word, lasso them into the next conversation?
That's probably a really good thing to try to do, right? Definitely. I usually don't, but I need to start doing that.
So what I do, and this is just trial and error, obviously, from years of experience, right, is you sit here and you're like, okay, I find out the person I'm dealing with isn't the decision maker, isn't the only decision maker, or something along those lines, right? So I'm already knowing I'm going to be requesting the next appointment, right? I'm there. I'm setting up the next appointment so I can deliver my proposal. So it's just a matter of rewording how you say it, right?
Okay.
So you're trying to lock them down, but at the same time, you're like, hey, if so-and-so is also involved, what I found that's easier for everybody is if they can carve out 10 minutes to meet me, they inevitably have questions, and it's so much easier to get the questions addressed in a 10-minute meeting than it is for me and you playing phone tag or email tag for weeks on end, trying to get just a couple of simple things answered when we found it's so much easier for everybody if they can just carve out 10 minutes and join us. And
that's good.
Most of the time you'll get that person to join. Now, even if it is only 10 minutes, it's fine. Make sure you keep your proposal, however you deliver your proposal to a reduced time frame of whatever you promise. But if they drag it over, that's okay. That's perfect. If they drag it over by 10 more minutes, that's fine. If they're asking questions, they're trying to understand. But by doing that, you're building a relationship. You're trying to build a relationship with them too, because you've already obviously built one with your influencer or partial decision maker on your walkthrough while you're asking questions. But you need to get the other person in there too, and then let them see A, your value, and B, if the other person, if your original contact likes you, they're going to be pushing for you anyways, and they may even ask you questions they already know the answer to, so that you re-highlight something that's of importance to the decision maker.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I'm definitely going to start implementing those words exactly.
Yeah, I think you'll see that it reduces your your sales cycle too. If you can pull those people in, that way they're not like, oh, I had a question about this, and then it has to trickle down whether they actually ask the question to the person who's going to reach out to you, and then they have to reach out to you. So not only does it save time on your end, you also, if you have a busy person that you're dealing with, they like that because they know if they're the middleman, that you just saved them a crap load of time.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be more likely to push for that too, to get you in front of them too, because they are like, oh man, Landis just saved me probably at least a couple of hours of time chasing down this person to get a signature, or if they have questions, then I have to go back to him and then go back to them. So they're more likely to do that because they see the benefit for themselves of not having to be the middleman.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I like that.
Good deal. You guys have any other questions or anything for me today?
Hey, what's going on, Josh?
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, quick question for you. Is there a way to find out, I'm guessing, like the average rate per hour in my area, like for janitorial, like what other like my competitors are charging? I know it's not an exact, but like to get a kind of framework of where we stand versus where everybody else is.
So, I mean, that's kind of tough because it's not like you can just go poll your competitors and find out what they're doing. So you've got couple options. If you're on Facebook groups that do it, say, hey, I'm in this area. I'm charging this ballpark per hour. If you're in this area, where are you guys at? So then you're not like the people who jump on there and are always like, hey, what should I charge? It's like you're giving value, but you're also asking for something too. That's one way to do it. Asking your current customers and the customers that come on where you fell in line with your proposal, right? So you're not going to be the cheapest, or you shouldn't be. If you are, you should raise your price. You're not going to be the cheapest. You certainly don't want them to tell you, well, yeah, you're the highest. So then you find if you're in the middle of the road, and if you have a good enough relationship with them, they may tell you how far out of whack you were compared to other people. Now, that doesn't tell you a whole lot, because the way people bid on stuff is going to be different. So somebody may look at the same facility that you look at, and you deem that it's a slower production rate, and you count your fixtures, and they come in with the flat fee pricing that they have of like 12 cents or 15 cents a square foot, and that's it. So they're going to come in way cheaper than you. So that doesn't necessarily reflect an hourly, but if they're within your range, then you can look and say, all right, maybe they're either a couple of dollars less hourly than me, or their production rate is faster than mine.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. The reason why I'm asking is because like I've won contracts that like usually like I'm always the highest, and I've won them at the highest, but I'm just like, okay, well, like how you just mentioned, like the production rates makes a difference. I've noticed that like when we come behind, and this has happened quite a few times, when we come behind, let's say a franchise, um, usually their production rate, how much they charging the customer for the actual, well, actually, I can tell sometimes like when we talk to that's like their employees or their franchisees, and they say, well, they only giving them like 3 hours to clean this place per night. And I'm like, wow, like this place takes 6 hours. So like that is way off. So
Yep.
I know it's a big difference with the franchises because it's typically usually we come in behind franchises. But I was just wondering if like there was a way, like I don't know how everybody else is picking their amount per hour. I know how we pick ours, but I just wanted to see like where we were at so I can kind of educate the customer a little bit more. Because a lot of times the customers never really understand why we're so much higher. So I noticed like when I educate them, like the difference between us and a franchise, they understand it, and it kind of makes more sense to them. So I was just trying to get a ballpark of like where everybody else was at or how they coming up with it.
I got you. So that's actually an easier thing to answer, right? So you're always, if you're not higher than a franchise cleaning company, you're not doing it right. That's in a nutshell. I know that sounds maybe a little brass to say it that way, but at the end of the day, I've worked for 2 master franchise owners, and I can tell you their production rates are faster than you can physically clean per hour, and their hourly rate is lower than you should be making. So both of those things are huge factors when you're talking to a customer, because if I'm a franchise and I'm coming in with a 30,000 square foot facility saying I can clean it 4,000 square feet per hour, that means I can do it in less than 8 hours. I'm not even going to count fixtures on a building that size. Now you come in and you say, all right, even if my production rate is 4,000 square feet per hour, which it might not be, it could be less if it's a highly congested area, then you're still going to count fixtures. So now you're coming out with several hours more of time just based off of the fixture count. And then that doesn't even count for the fact that you're sitting there going, okay, I've got to pay people a livable wage that are working for me, and I've got to make a profit. See, the model with a franchise is they make their percentage regardless of whether the franchisee makes money or not. They made their percentage. So they've taken their profit off of the top. then they've sold that account to the franchisee. So unless they can maintain the account for a year, they're not making profit even at that point. And then their hourly rate is probably, I'm going to venture a guess, their hourly rate is going to be maybe 3/4 of what your hourly rate is, probably less. And what happens is these franchisees find that they think they're seeing a $1,000 amount of a job, and then when all said and done, they're making $550 because they've got their franchise fees taken out of it. They've got to pay for the account that's taken out of that. So at the end of it, they're seeing maybe $550. They may be paying their help more than that at that point, and then they realize, oh shoot, which is why these companies find themselves in this perpetual loop with franchises, is because they get this 90-day sweet spot of this honeymoon stage, and then it falls off. The clean falls off because these people are like, hey, the only way I can make money is if I can do this place in faster than the franchise says I can clean it. And they're saying I should spend 2 hours in here, and so I have to do it in an hour to make a profit. So
Yeah, and that's exactly what I noticed. I own, that's how I started. I owned a franchise, and I quickly figured that out. And this was back in 2001. So yeah, I quickly figured that out, but I never really like kind of investigated like the breakdown of like what you just mentioned into now. But I'm noticing that like especially like a lot of the leads that I get from Google, like SEO,
mhm.
when we go on the walkthrough and we talk to them, and we start to find out like, well, who do you currently have? And when they mention a franchise name, it's just like, oh man, we know we're gonna be like double the price. So
Yep.
let's start the education process of it.
Mhm.
So that's where, and then I was just wondering, like, well, damn, how much are they like actually charging per hour, and how much like are some of these other companies like, where are they coming up with these numbers from? Because everybody always say like, man, you guys are like double everybody else, but we really like you guys. I'm like, well, how the hell are we always coming in double? Like, you know,
So that's the thing. Like I haven't worked for a franchise in several years now. When I was working, so I was working for one during COVID, when COVID first started. And at that point, the area that I'm in was charging higher hourly than I had seen in a lot of other areas, because you were just being knocked out if you were trying to charge $25 to $30 an hour. You were just knocked out. You were just way too high. The franchise that I was working for in this area was charging 18, which was low in my opinion by a significant amount. But even if you say the same franchise, the same owner in Greenville, which is his same territory, it's just an hour south of me, was 16. So you say, when people are saying, hey, it cost me, like if I did at that time, I did a search like what's a livable wage in North Carolina, at that point it was telling me it should have been $13.65 an hour. They were charging 18. So if you go 18 minus 20%, you were at like 14 to $15 an hour. So after all of your fees, but before you bought your account, you were making barely a living wage and you were owning a business. So it's really at that point that you have to start honing in on, yeah, they're a big company, but they make their money and their profit anyway. They've got it. They don't care. They don't care if you need to get another franchisee and another franchisee and another franchisee. Well, actually, they would prefer that. In most franchises, they would prefer that because they're selling that account again and again and again and again. So they're making more money off of that account every time it turns. They don't, and they're making their profit on top of it, where franchisees not in most cases.
right? That makes sense. Now, how would you go about like educating the client if they already had experience with a franchise,
Mhm.
and before you even present your bid, you're gonna come in way over.
Yep.
How do you go about like educating them?
So I think I've talked with Rod about this a little bit too, and there's going to be older episodes that we talked about it, but I always highlight the difference between vested interest and invested interest.
Mm,
Right. So that little buzzword that makes people feel good, that franchises will always use is the franchisee has a vested interest in cleaning the facility. So that just makes them feel all warm and fuzzy inside, like this is the greatest thing ever. But you need to educate them on what vested interest means. So vested interest means that this franchisee, they're going to come in, they're going to get the job. Let's say it's $1,000. They're going to be like, yes, I've got $1,000. I got a new $1,000 a month cleaning. And they're going to sign it. And they're going to work month one. The whole month they're going to work. They're not going to get paid at the end of month one because that's not how the franchisee agreement works. They get paid at the end of month two. So they work all of month one. They haven't gotten paid. And then they work all of month two. And when they get to the end of month two, they're expecting $1,000. And what do they see? They see $1,000 top line. Then they see minus franchise fees, so minus $200 or more. Some could be $250 for their franchise fees, royalty fees, all of that stuff. Now they're at $750. Now they have to pay for the account. So vested means they have to pay to buy that account from the master franchise owner to service the customer. So they're paying between 3 times and 5 times, in some cases even 6 times, that monthly amount to service it. So now that $1,000 account costs them $3,000 to $6,000. So even if you say the small end, $3,000, you're at $3,000. 3,000 divided by 12 is $250. So they'll finance that account for 12 months at $250. So now we go back. They're at 1,000 minus $250 for franchise fees and royalty fees. So now they're at $750, and now they have to pay for the account. There's another $250. Now that $1,000 is $500. They haven't paid their help yet. And this is why you see month one is always great. It's a brand new account. They're excited. Month two, they're still somewhat excited. They haven't gotten paid, but they understand how it goes. But when they get to the end of month two, they realize that $1,000 is $500. And that's assuming they've done it themselves. They actually have $500. If they've paid help, then they fronted payroll for the last 2 months. And now here they are they're going into month 3 going, I ain't making any money. I could be working at McDonald's flipping burgers and not having to deal with all of this. And that's when the service starts to decline. So you get that after, and you'll never notice the service decline during that month. It's always after that 90-day window between 90 and 120 days once you start noticing the stuff that's been being neglected. And it's been being neglected for a while at this point once it starts piling up.
mm,
So if you compare the vested of they're paying the franchise, the master franchise in order to service your account, compare that to an invested interest. You're a local company, you have an invested interest in the community, you have an invested interest in doing work for the customer and keeping them happy. Those are all what you've invested in. You've invested in whatever types of marketing you've invested in to get in front of them, to see them, to walk them through. So you are invested in keeping the relationship going, and you're not going to do that through just the churning over and over of different people cleaning their facility.
yeah, that makes a ton of sense, man. I really appreciate you breaking this down. I'm actually going to need this recording because I wanted to get 2 of my guys on here, but they both had jobs, so we're going to use this as a training for sure.
For sure. Well, I'll be posting a link to this later on today, so definitely look for it. Now, the other thing that you asked about was figuring out your hourly rate, right? So you can figure out your hourly rate backwards from using my same equation. Instead of plugging an hourly rate your hourly rate into it, you can take the same equation of putting your production rate together and then saying, what do I pay? Right? I pay, let's say you pay $20 an hour, then you put $20 an hour in instead of in the scenario we did earlier, $39.50. You plug it in with 20, then you figure out how much that costs or how much that costs to pay your employee. Then you have to add in their labor, whatever labor taxes and insurance and all your things that you add to that. You'll add that to that dollar amount. You'll add your cost of product to that dollar amount, and then you'll say, how much profit do I need to make? You'll add that to and then you'll come out with your monthly total that way too. So that way, or excuse me, you'll come out with your hourly total at that rate for what you need to charge. What you'll probably find is whether you say, I need to make 30% or 25%, or you add up their things and then you add whatever the same equation is on their money, you're going to find that your numbers are going to be pretty close. Whether you have a dollar amount on, say it's 45, or you build it out opposite way, you're going to be pretty close to the same either way you slice it.
Yeah.
But that's another way to build it out too. And then, if you pay higher or better, highlight that. Highlight the fact that if your people stay around, right? Cleaning industry is full of turnover. Why is it full of turnover? It pays crappy. It has crappy hours. And there's no oversight in most cases. So if you can highlight, we pay better, we have oversight, we have less turnover, we're not pulling from the same pool of people that everybody else is, then it's also an easier choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing I don't do is we don't really highlight to our customers, because we pay more and we only hire according to like our core values. So like if it's not a core value match, we found that, or the screening process, like certain types of people is not a good fit for us. Like college students and stuff like that. It's typically not a good fit because it's so temporary for them. So I think I need to start educating the customer more on how we hire and who we actually look for, because I think then they have a better understanding of why we're so much higher.
And they'll understand it more that way, right? So, I mean, if you're explaining, if they understand your core values, and I like this, man, we are only hiring this way. You could say as priority, our goal is to make lifetime relationships. And we do that. We make lifetime relationships with customers. We will make lifetime relationships with employees. And we do that based off of our core values of how we hire, how we treat our customers, how our employees treat our customers because of the way we treat them.
Yeah, man, this is gold. Appreciate it, man.
For sure.
As always, man, you always come with the gems. So yeah, we definitely will be rewatching this one for sure.
For sure. I'll be posting it later on today, so just keep an eye out for it.
Will do, man.
All right. Dom, as always, good talking to you, buddy.
Same here, my bro.
Althea, you got any more questions before we cut off for today? All right. Well, perfect. Dom, you have any more questions before we cut off for the day?
No, sir. That's it.
Well, you guys have a blessed day.
All right, man. Take care.
See you.